Hi guys, two things before we start this video. One is that I forgot to say that we will be going into a quick rules overview of Vinhos before we get into my and my mom's general thoughts on the game. And two is that this is a session report, this is not a review video, so please take that into consideration. We will be giving our general thoughts on Vinhos, but we have not played it enough to give a definitive, informed opinion on how we think the games will stand in the future. So there's going to be a little bit of speculation, but we will also have some genuine thoughts to share with you guys, so hopefully this video will be informative in some kind of way. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into a quick rules overview, and then we will get into the session report. Vinhos places you in Portugal, one of the world's largest wine producers, where you will take on the role of moguls who are trying to build the best wine-making estates and then gain prestige through selling, exporting, and the main attraction of the game, which is the Portuguese wine fair. The game is broken into 3 phases: an actions phase, a production phase, and the fair phase. You will take actions on a central board, where planning is key to getting to the action spots you want, as distance, other players, and the round marker might force you to pay extra on your turn. You can buy special vineyards from different regions of Portugal, you can hire farmers and enologists, you can improve the structure of your estates with wineries and cellars, you can hire specialists that help you take extra actions, you can sell or export your wine with barrels, or you can simply pass, which places you first in turn order and allows you to submit a wine to the fair earlier. During the production phase, you will produce wine based on the strength of your estates, and old wine will age and potentially get better. However, from year to year, the weather might impact the quality of the wine you produce, adding a small thematic twist. The fair is the game's main event and one of the bigger ways you will score points. Based on the value of the wine they submitted, usually higher the better, players will move up the fair track and victory points will pay out relative to whoever's highest. Players also receive barrels from 3 different wine magnates if the wine they submit matches their tastes. Annabella critiques the color of the wine, Bruno critiques its value, and Carolina critiques the region the wine came from. The fair isn't the only way to get points, as players will get points for their final cash, their exports, and special magnate goals that serve as long-term objectives. But that's just a quick overview of Vinhos' core gameplay. Build up, pick, and submit, with the strength of your play dictated by how much money you make, how much wine you'll be able to produce, how many barrels you'll have on hand, and of course, keeping an eye on what other players are doing. Hello everyone, welcome to Bedside Tabletop. My name is Richard, and this is my mom, and this is Session Report, where I force her to play games that she or I have not played before, and I just want to get your general ideas on it. So what game did we play today?
We played something where you make wine.
It's called Vinhos Deluxe Edition, 2016, was released by Eagle Griffin Games and designed by Vital Lacerda.
I think I bought it for you and punched out the little pieces.
Yes. Now this is actually the second time that we've played this game. It took about 2 hours and 48 minutes and we played it 2-player together. I can see for other people that this game might go faster at 2 players, but for us, we're slow people and there are a lot of decisions
we're
you can make.
strategic.
Yes.
Not slow.
So it was a decent length. But let's go ahead and get into our questions. All right, Mom. So first question. How useful is this game when you were playing it? Now this refers to the graphic design of the game, more so than me teaching you this game.
Not very useful. This one is hard. Part of the reason this is so difficult is that it's hard to see all the things. They're tiny. The cards aren't distinguishable enough from each other, the vineyards versus the wineries and so forth. And it just has a lot of steps, so it's a challenge anyway, but I think they could have used the space better.
So for an old person like you with bad eyes...
Excuse me?
This was not very useful.
Excuse me?
I do agree that particularly when it comes to the vineyard tiles, that they are not really well laid out because the region that they apply to, which is very important in this game, is not that big. So it can be kind of hard to see what areas on your player board the region tiles are at. So I do agree with you on that.
Dollar value could be a lot smaller.
A lot smaller? Yeah, and then...
Well, wait, when we flip it? Yeah, no, the numbers just need to be bigger.
Okay. I do think one great thing about this game visually is the consistency in which the iconography is used. I feel like when it comes to the end game scoring tiles, it's a lot easier to interpret them.
For sure.
As you're playing it. But I do agree that upon first play, when you're seeing all this information, it can be pretty hard for your first time to go through it. So that's something to keep in mind. Anything else you want to say about that? Do you like the look of the game?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pleasing to look at. I think it's, the play is made a little bit more difficult by the fact that it doesn't have words on the cards, which is because it doesn't require any particular language.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So sometimes I have to have the cards explained to me.
Yes, and I do agree. We are also playing with the additional expansion to this game, so with these wine specialist tiles, some of the expansion tiles are mixed in, and you will have to have the rule book handy to understand how those work because they are radically different from the base game's tiles. All right, next question. What was your favorite mechanism?
That's the export mechanism.
The export mechanism was your favorite mechanism.
Yeah.
So that's the mechanism where you will be placing your barrels on the export action. You get victory points based on your wine's value that you're exporting. And it's also kind of, in a two-player game, it's like a fight because the export action is based into columns, and whoever has the most barrels in that column is going to get an additional victory point at the end of the game.
And it's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points, yes.
Yeah.
And I just should also say that Mom did win this game at 126 points, and I lost at 101 points.
I scored 25% more points than you scored, to be very clear.
Yes. But yes, so you like the export action a lot. Is there a specific reason why you like the export action?
Because it's an investment in the future.
Okay.
And I like things that are an investment in the distant future because I know I'm going to make some strategic blunders along the way, some short-term blunders.
Short-term blunders.
Yeah, that are going to, you saw how many times I came to a point where I could do nothing on a turn.
Yes. Yes, it's a very tight game. Definitely very tight. The action economy can lead you to points where you simply can't take any one action on your turn. If you don't have money, money is incredibly tight in this game. But yeah, I was quite surprised at how much you won through that export action, and I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
You tend to really like the strategic parts of games, and I think the export action is a great little strategic portion of the game.
It also allowed me to run at a low bank account. I often didn't have any money or very little money.
The most money for the game.
Right. But I had cards that allowed me to do exports on my turns.
All right, so my favorite mechanism of the game is, I'm going to sort of be more general than you are, but I really like the barrels in this game. I really love the barrel economy. I think it's the smartest part of the game because I really love how barrels relate to the end game scoring, particularly, and how many points you need barrels, because barrels are how you get money, barrels are how you get ending game points. I thought that was a really very brain-burning, very thinky part of the game.
To draw those?
Yeah, to draw these, to draw the magnate scoring tiles. And I love the way in which you get the barrels from the different wine magnates, how they have specific criteria each time you go into the fair and you want to fulfill as much of it as possible. I really like that. And so, I'm kind of agreeing with you on this. I think the barrels were definitely my favorite aspect of the game because they were the most strategic part of it. Most strategic and most rewarding part of it. All right, so let's go to the opposite side of that. What was your least favorite mechanism of the game?
I dislike the fair.
You dislike the fair?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the problem is once I got far enough behind, it was inevitable that you were always going to be ahead of me at every time we went to the fair.
Okay.
So, and because you were ahead of me, you got certain points for that, and you got certain privileges for that. So that was, to me, I don't feel like we get a lot out of the fair, and I don't think there's much of an opportunity to overtake.
So you felt like your exporting was more useful to you than what the fair was?
Yeah.
Don't you see that as...
I'm not sure you got much out of it either, sorry.
Don't you see that export action as more of a balancing factor for the fair, where some people will focus on getting points exclusively through the fair and some will focus on getting it mostly on the export side.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, true, because the fare amounts
Are pretty high.
are
I mean,
like the are a
if you
lot,
come in first at the first fair, you get 9. If you come in second, you get 12. Come in third, you get 15.
and the spread is 9 to 6, 12 to 8, and 15 to 10.
Yeah, so it gets bigger.
I didn't realize you got that much and still lost by so much. So and you won every fair.
I won every fair.
Yep,
Yeah. But I do agree with you that I got to a point where I was so far ahead in the fair that it was
There was no point in
no
me
point
even
in you catching
trying,
up.
which actually helped me a little bit because I could hold on to certain wines and export them instead.
Yes.
Yeah, so
And-
you're right. It
yeah.
was a balancing mechanism.
It was a balancing mechanism.
Yeah.
But I get that, especially when teaching this game, it's very hard to teach this game because the fair is interconnected with so much in the action system that can be pretty overwhelming even on your first or second play.
Yes.
So I understand. Any other things about the fair you didn't like, or any other mechanisms that maybe you weren't too keen on?
Not really, no.
Okay. Personally, for me, it's very hard to pick a mechanism that I disliked about this game because, like I said, it's all interconnected. There's a lot of, if you don't like this mechanism, well, the problem is that it feeds into this other part. So I think there are just a few little things that I'm not so big on. I think the biggest one I'm not too hot on is using the wine specialists to increase your fair points during the fair.
Yes.
It felt like, it's definitely one of the most abstract part of the games. I feel like on the whole this game has its theme comes through, definitely through the mechanisms, but I don't really understand how that's connected sort of to the fair. And then it's also, on more plays in the future, it's easier to remember how that affects that, but it's kind of hard to do that on your first couple of times. I don't know, I just think the way that the years are randomized, it was a little too much knowledge that I didn't know what wine specialists I wanted to be grabbing in order to have some for the future. But then again, that could just be you want to grab a big variety of them.
Well, I knew because I got that card, that tile that allowed me to peek
Yes,
ahead.
you did get that.
And so
tile
I
that allowed you
started
to peek
collecting the ones that would be the most valuable when we came to the fair.
But again, that's a...
But it didn't save me anything.
No.
Because the fair, I was so far behind in the fair,
That it didn't
I thought
matter.
those were going to be victory points.
No.
I was
Fair
wrong
points
about
are
that.
not victory points.
No,
And
I
I'm
know,
glad
yeah.
because I racked up so many. The
Yeah.
game would probably be broken if they were.
Yeah.
Because if you get a decent engine, then that just pushes you further away from other players. And I do think this is pretty unforgiving game if you make a mistake early, especially early on in the game. If you play it more tactically rather than strategically, I can definitely see you not winning this game.
What was your mistake
My,
that you made early in the game that resulted in this?
I really don't
Incredible
know.
gulf.
I really don't know. But I played wrong. I think you did good play because you specialize in having a lot of different wine estates ahead of time. So
Yeah.
you had a lot of wine that you could play with in terms of what can I spend to grab those magnate action tiles. I think you played really well with that. I wasn't really thinking long term on that. I was just kind of beefing up all my estates. And I do think that kind of cost me the game at the end of it. And maybe I went too hard into the fair. I do have 41 fair points to your 24.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that all goes to, I like to plan. I like to build things that I know are going to work very far down the
Yes.
road because I know I'm going to make I'm going to overlook some things. On
You're
the
an
way.
engine builder.
I know myself very well.
And you're good at eschewing the immediate benefits
Yes.
for the future benefits.
Yeah.
And that's another aspect that I also really like about this game is you always have to be thinking ahead. And because you really don't get many victory points until the first fair happens because you're not likely to be exporting a lot before that. And I think that really adds an interesting arc to the game. Before we move on to the other questions, any other mechanisms you want to highlight, either good or bad?
I like the blocks. What
The
are they
renown
called?
cubes?
Renown cubes,
Renown cubes
yeah.
that you put in. Yeah, so in the game, There are these little cubes called renown cubes. When you build up estates, place things in estates, based on the region that you're building them up in, you place a renown cube in that region. And those renown cubes can be spent during the fair or when you're exporting or selling to boost the value of your wine. And there's even Alentejo, which is a region that beefs up those renown cubes and makes them more valuable when you spend them. What particularly do you like about the renown cubes?
Well, they cause some tension in the game between the players. So you and I were both invested in the same region. And as we were investing, we built up renown cubes in that region that we could use. And then, it put pressure on me, for example, to go ahead and sell that wine before you would have a chance to use the renown cubes that were in there to earn extra points for you.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting. It also provides it's another chance to think ahead.
Yeah, I have to really agree with you. In general, I just love how interactive this game is, especially with 2 players. I was a little worried when we got it that it would be a little too open. It wouldn't really sing at the tightness that the designer originally wanted. But it's very much a push and pull at 2 players. It's a tug of war. And
I thought it was really tight until the end. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's another game where there comes a point where you just blank out, and at the end you're like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
That happened last time.
I can do this. Yeah.
You won.
I won because of that. Yeah.
And it was all a bunch of tiles and actions you were able to take right at the very end.
Yes, exactly. And that's a really great thing about this game. So yeah, I do agree with you. The renown cubes are a very good part of the game. All right, so the next question. Can you see yourself playing this in the future? Well, and you can be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's a game I would reach for off the shelf, but I would never turn you down for playing it on a day when we had 3 hours for a single game, right? That doesn't happen all the time, right?
Happen. Yeah.
And I think it might be a little bit like, I'm pretty sure Terraforming Mars took about 3 hours when I first started playing it because it was dizzying, so much information. But now we've got it down to an hour and some.
Yeah.
So
it might go down. This one might go down.
It could go faster, although that has fewer mechanisms.
Yes.
The engine is simpler.
Easier,
It is easier once you have read the cards and you know what they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you go into a little more specifically about why you wouldn't really pull this one off the shelf? You know, if you were the one who was picking the game and I didn't force you to play.
Right. It's honestly, you never forced me. I would say no.
Yeah.
I think that, eyesight.
Eyesight.
Yeah,
okay.
it is.
Yeah,
it's
eyesight.
just hard to see what's going on the board. If the board were more gigantic,
which it's already gigantic.
Exactly, you
table.
Wouldn't have a space to play it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's. But I think they could have. Again, I think in the design, they could have put things together in ways that were more distinctive, easier to read. For me, that just makes it a little bit harder.
The brain power that's
it increases
required.
the load.
Yeah. Would you say in general you prefer lighter games to heavier games, middleweight games to heavier games?
I think I like them all.
You like them all. Okay. Yeah. So it's just that the amount of mental energy it takes to read the board. It's just kind of you're kind of like maybe.
Yeah, I need a new prescription too. I'll play. I'll play.
Anything.
A game at just about any length, except,
super long.
Not something that's all day long or campaign long.
Campaign long, yeah, that's right. Well, we did play My City. That was a campaign game, and we did
sort of, but it had episodes that were that were shorter.
I get what you mean.
That's a really fun game.
Yeah, I'm with you on the fact that I wouldn't want to play this all the time, just because it is very mentally taxing. It gives you a lot of things to consider. And this is actually, we played the 2016 special vintage version of the game. The other side of the board is supposedly more hard. I read the rules for that. I don't think I'll really ever play that. No. I mean, I love heavy games, but I'm not always going to be in the mood.
Right.
Like every time we hang out, it's not always going to be in that realm of possibility. I agree. But yes, I do see myself playing this one in the future a lot. All right, next question is, what will change on your next play? And this can refer to how you will play the game next time you play it, and this can also refer to the variety that it provides.
I think, remembering, I'll remember some things like, to have renown blocks available, to plan ahead, to have those available for when I'm selling, to probably sell more often and have more cash on hand. Although running pretty cash poor wasn't too bad for me as long as I had points in the bank. The main thing is that I would be more aware of fair planning.
Fair planning, yep. Yeah, because I mean, if you matched me or exceeded me on some of the fairs, your score would be...
It'd be a bigger gulf.
Yeah, it would be a higher score.
I'm not sure, though, that like some of those possible points went into exporting.
Yes.
So the higher value wines I exported, and that got me a lot of points.
I like it because it has a good balance of stuff that's random, but stuff that's strategic. I thought the weather tiles weren't too detrimental, how some weather tiles affect your producing. I actually like that how you don't really know sometimes if it's going to be a good year or a bad year.
Yep.
And I can see that adding flavor to the game on subsequent plays. Also, the way that the wine specialists come out, it adds some more randomness to the game because you use them more tactically. You pick them up for the powers that are on them to be more situational. I find I didn't really pick them up for the long-term goal. I don't think you really did either. It felt like you were more using them in the moment. Grabbing them in the moment and using them for that.
Once I was able to peek ahead and see what they were going to be worth in the next season because of that special tile I had. And also, once I had pulled the tile that was going to give me points for every one of those. But that, of course, is just, I could pull them up randomly.
Yeah, I do think for a game like this, the first handful of turns are going to be somewhat prescribed. You want your vineyards, you want your wineries, you want to place the cellars, although, sometimes you can get away with not having cellars. But I don't see that really changing in the long term. I see most of what would change in my strategy in the game. It would be around those specialists. It would be, especially since each vineyard has different powers, I really like to try out all that kind of stuff. So it would be around trying to see different combinations of that on my player board. And then it would also be working within the restrictions of the weather tiles.
I think it's one of those games where you get better at it as you play it. So it's kind of similar. And maybe if I played it enough times, I would just try out a different strategy just for fun.
Okay, so our next question. How does this compare to other games you have played?
Well, obviously viticulture comes to mind. So another wine game.
Another wine
game,
yeah.
This feels like viticulture on steroids. And I could see some similarities, and there are also similarities in the way I want to play it. So I want, with viticulture, I'm not looking for the short-term gain. I'm not looking to sell bottles of wine, sell wines early in the game. I really am fine with doing that later in the game and accumulating cards that have powers that won't be useful until down the road. That's fine with me. So the strategy that I want to use in that game is similar to the one I use today in this game.
Okay, of course viticulture is going to be compared. They're both games about making wine. I do feel like viticulture is way more tactical than Vinhos.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel Vinhos is more strategic because with viticulture, you say you can, think of the long term, think of your orders, fulfill stuff like that, but you can also play it by seeing what visitors you have. If they give you points, just grabbing the points at the first opportunity you have. And I feel like you have a more even playing field doing that than you have with Vinhos. I feel like viticulture has more variety in that regard. But I do see the similarities. I mean, the aging. I feel the aging in this game is a lot more rewarding because the numbers go up higher, whereas in viticulture, you're just going up incrementally.
True.
And I feel like once you hit, like in the cellar, once you hit that +3 and +5 spot after the 2+1 spots, that's just a really great feeling.
Also, that's thematic.
Yes.
Because a 3-year-old wine is just so much better than a 2-year-old.
2-year-old.
In my
in your eyes.
uninformed experience.
Yeah, both of our uninformed wine eyes. But yeah, and you also mentioned Terraforming Mars. Ares Expedition, by the way, the card game,
Right.
not the board game. This game is definitely also focused on building out your engine of wine. It might not seem like that initially, but I do think having a strong wine engine churning out wine, that's very important.
Absolutely.
Especially late game, to pick up those magnate actions and those magnate scoring tiles. And yeah, I do see some similarities to how you would play something like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the engine building in Terraforming Mars is similar because it's going to pay off throughout the game, and it's never going to get less powerful.
They both kind of have that same arc where it starts out, slow, slow, and then you reach that point where you're like, I can do all of this on my turn. Later game Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, when we play that action card and we're able to take all those actions, sometimes that can go to like 20 minutes because we've just got so many options in front of us, and that you get that in this game. Of course, I feel the game is more unique in of itself. I feel like it occupies its own space, especially in my board game collection.
For sure.
Anything else you want to say about that? Any other thoughts that came up when you were playing?
It's just so challenging. It really felt like it used all the parts of my brain. That's one of the things that's satisfying about it. It also is tiring, and it reminds me how, isn't it?
It is tiring.
So it reminds me how, I'm told that our brains use a lot of the energy that our bodies have are used just by our brains, just thinking, running that organ, the brain. And
do you feel like you burn calories?
Yes,
after you
I'm hungry. After a game like this, and more so than, although it could change as we get better.
A lot of games like chess, you can also feel like.
I don't play that. But yes,
But yeah, no, I really agree with you. This is an itchy game. And I find it ironic that its theme is wine because you never want to play this game while you're drinking wine. That would be the worst.
It is very, I think, consistent thematically. That's one of the things that's satisfying about it, is that I really feel like I'm a vintner.
And even though we did mention viticulture, I would probably most likely be in the headspace to want to play viticulture more often than this one. I do really prefer, even though you don't like the fair, I prefer the fair to the order fulfillment in viticulture.
Really?
Because I feel like this has that, it kind of has order fulfillment in the exporting, and it also, with the fair, I feel like that's something more concrete you can build up to. With viticulture, you're randomly drawing the orders, and you're not sure if you'll get one that works within your within the player board that you have. With this game, you have tons of flexibility with the fair, because you can determine what you want to put into the fair, where what estate you want with that, and I really like that compared to specifically that game in my collection.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. And our final question, who do you think would like this game?
Other than you and me?
No, I mean just in general. Think about a person. What person comes to mind when you think someone's going to say like, "Oh, this is my favorite game"?
People who had already played and enjoyed complex games, who don't need the quick result. So you have to be patient.
Yes.
And you have to be undistracted. So you have to be a person who has time to devote to games and really makes it a priority. So it has to be a priority for you.
Yeah, I definitely think the main thing would be someone who likes working within restrictions. Like the challenges that the mechanisms present are really the focus. Although the thing about this game is a lot of the other challenge with it is how you affect the other player. And I think that's smart. It kind of makes it multifaceted, because it's a challenge you're working within and then a challenge that you can directly affect the other player when you play it. So yeah, I think someone who really likes working within restrictions, being restricted and trying to puzzle out what's the best way I can make this empire of wine that I'm building.
Do you mean in limited turns?
That's another thing. That's great about this game that I really like about it is how it gives you a timer, how it gives you a clock. The game has a set number of rounds. Man, your feet are so loud.
So loud.
And even though you get more strong as those rounds go on, like those 2 games that we compared it to, they don't really have a set number of rounds. Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition does not have a set number of rounds. Viticulture does not have a set number of rounds. So that's another restriction that you're working within in the game. And so yeah, if you like that. You hate that?
Yeah, well, you know how I curse Wingspan when we get down to the last round.
Oh,
and you know, I only have 5 cubes, and the fact that the rounds I have fewer and fewer opportunities as the game goes on, and this is like that.
You have fewer and fewer.
I only have 3 turns in the first round, then 2, then 1, and then the game is over. It's crazy. So that's it's hard, but I'm worth it.
Yes. Yeah, that's another aspect that you definitely should be thinking about when considering this game, is that if you don't really like games that are pushing you to get better at it every single turn, I don't think you'd really, I don't think you would like this one. I think this is more for people who are up for some sort of challenge that's game focused rather than largely player focused. So that was our last question. Do you have any final thoughts on the game?
It's a really hard game. It's really fun. I'm glad that I've played it twice and I was surprised at how much I remembered about the rules from the last game, even though I had to ask you 100 questions about the rules.
Every turn you had to ask me something.
Every turn I had to ask you something, and what does this mean?
Yeah.
And some of the cards, I think the tiles I asked you several times.
I'm pretty sure all the
same one.
You asked me. Yeah, the same
several
one.
times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Again, that's more of an us thing, though. I mean, the small printing and all that and whatnot. I do feel that's more focused on how we are as people.
Yeah, that's
rather
right.
Than because if you're someone with pattern recognition and all that,
it's consistent.
It's consistent. Yeah,
for sure.
Good enough.
Yeah. And the fact that it doesn't rely on words is kind of great, because then the iconography tells the whole story. And sometimes the games that use words to explain cards to you are problematic in themselves. They have problematic descriptions that make me a little bit mad.
Yes, Although not having those words can also present its challenges, because you're like, how do I interpret this in relation to that? But going back to that, it is a good presentation of that. What were we talking about?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think we forgot. We were giving our general final thoughts on it. Can you stop with your loud feet?
I know.
Can you stop? I'm pretty sure the microphones can hear that. Pretty sure they can hear that.
Silly girl.
Yeah. On the spectrum of a game that you dislike to a game that you're really head over the heels for, think about like a lot of the games you've played. Where does this one sit? I'm not saying like give it a specific number
of all
out
the
of
games
10
I've
to
played.
rate. But yeah, out of all the games you've played.
5. Keeping in mind that there are a lot of goofy, quick games that are above that I would reach for often.
Yes.
Right? And then there are some games that I played in my life that were that I now find extremely dull because of the games that we've been playing in the last few years. These newer games, both the easy one, Shifting Stones, and the or Seikatsu.
Seikatsu, yeah, that's a big one
that we can reach for and play just instantly.
Yeah.
And the ones the difficult, complex ones. So I would say this is probably around a 5 for me, which isn't to say I wouldn't play it again. I really would.
Yeah. So on a spectrum, it would be in the middle.
There's so many good games. Is the thing.
There's tons. There's tons. Again, this isn't a review video. We're giving our thoughts on it, but we've only played it twice. Please keep that in mind.
It's a good game.
Opinions can change. But yes, no, I totally understand giving it a 5, putting it right in that middle spot, because as a gamer, with your tastes, I see how that kind of lands on that side. I'm high end.
Exactly.
High end on this. Yeah, I'm very high end on this. Just looking at it, I want to play it again now, and that's a great indicator. Even though I said, I wouldn't always grab this, but,
This is a game that I can see you reaching for again and again.
Yes. So yeah, Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'd say you gave it a 5. I'd say right now after 2 plays, my enthusiasm for it is hitting somewhere 8. It could go lower, it could go higher. We'll just have to see how it turns out later in the future.
Well, did you see the ones I grabbed to play today?
Yes.
So, Wingspan,
Yeah.
Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition,
Yeah.
the Did I bring Raiders of
Raiders
the
of the North Sea. And you brought Ticket to Ride.
And Ticket to Ride, okay.
Yes.
So those are all games that I would have, except for Ticket to Ride, it was quite a learning curve for me. Like I had to play
You had to
them
play them to get to know.
right. So
Yeah.
it was slow going when I first started playing them because I had to learn all the mechanisms. I had to read the cards.
Yes.
Just read them and understand them, right? Very important.
Yeah.
And now I play them kind of very quickly, but you can't present them to your dad.
No.
Right?
Yeah, this is not a dad game.
No, it needs to be. He'll play Ticket to Ride though. I think.
He didn't like it when he played it.
That's
He
right.
did
He
not
can
like
play
it.
simpler train games where you put the little trains in a line and you just you don't have like certain
So,
okay.
yeah, those are our general thoughts on Vinhos Deluxe Edition, published by Eagle Griffin Games, designed by Vital Lacerda. This actually turned out pretty fun to do.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, hope you all have a great night. This was Bedside Tabletop. I'm Richard.
I'm Monica.
Monica, there you go. You just dropped your name.
I dropped it.
Yeah, all right. See you in the next video, folks.